Thank you for joining today's webinar hosted by the Urantia Association's Education Committee. Today, Agnès and Guy will present on the theme, Let's Make a Decision. Thank you, Agnès and Guy, for your willingness to serve. The session is yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
When I shared the title with Gard, he said, oh, let's make a deal. Door number 1, door number 3, or door number 2, or door... You remember that show? I was pretty young when I was watching that. So today we're gonna look at the process of decision making and what's the difference between decision, choice, decision, action, and all that. And all together in the union of our soul, I think we're gonna be able to go deeper in our understanding by sharing, pooling our experiences, our perspectives. So thank you all for being here. And we know that there's very little work for solitary people on this paradise ascension. So teamwork is great. And do you like new things, unknown, surprise? Who likes it? Well, I was going to lead you in to a little meditation, and Agnès will take us out of the meditation with a prayer. And I was going to do it, but I know someone here who's better than me to do it. So I'm going to surprise her and ask her to lead us into a little conscious breathing. God is in each breath. Our earthly life starts with the first breath and finish with the last one until we move to the dimension world. So her name is Sherry, and she's from North Carolina, like you, Sherry. Sherry and Sherry. Wow, that's pretty good. Okay, can you lead us in meditation for a couple of minutes? And Agnès, when you feel ready, please do a prayer to lead us into this webinar. Thank you. Hello, Goodwin.
Okay.
Good evening.
Where are you? In Africa?
Yeah, I'm Nigeria precisely.
Ah, okay, good. Thanks for joining us. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're gonna go in a little guided meditation by Sherry.
All right.
So I invite every one of us to softly close our eyes. And wherever you are, whether you're sitting or standing, I also invite us to bring our awareness into our physical body for the purpose of bringing our attention really beautifully into the present moment, right here, right now, with all of the potential and all of the unfolding that we can experience at any present moment of time. So allow yourselves to relax your body, to feel comfortable in your body. If you need to make a slight adjustment, this is the time to do it. Perhaps a little wiggle or a little shift for comfort. And now let's turn our full awareness to our breath. And for the moment, we're not going to alter our breath in any way. We're simply going to become aware of breathing with our full consciousness completely centered on the amazing gift of breath. Feel the cool air as it comes in through the nostrils. feel the warm air as it leaves the body. Fresh air coming in, spent air releasing, taking with it any little remnants of tension, bringing deeper physical and mental relaxation with every exhale. The breath is like the rhythm of the ocean, coming in and releasing back into the oneness of the ocean. Now we're going to move into a conscious state of breathing that's known as the balanced breath, to help us bring equanimity to the mind, to the physical brain, and to the body. This is a guided breath. So take a breath in and exhale fully, releasing. Now together, let's inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. And inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. And exhale. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. Now I invite you to do 2 more rounds of the balanced breath on your own in the silence.
Well, Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful experience led by Sherry, bringing us home where you are within us. Thank you for the opportunity to discover together, well, how important it is to make a decision, the one of wanting to turn to you and be like you. Thank you for supporting all the good work that's going to be done in these 2 following hours, and that is going to allow each of us to go deeper in not only the understanding, but in our way of dealing with choice and decision action. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your goodness and truth and beauty. Thank you for all what you are and we want to be. Amen.
Thank you, Sherry and Agnes. That was beautiful. I really enjoyed that.
Guy, you're on mute.
I was saying thank you. Well, I'm going to read again the invitation because it kind of summarizes what we're going to do today. Our life, especially our eternal life, is all a matter of decision. The keys of the kingdom of heaven are sincerity, more sincerity, and more sincerity. All men have these keys. Men use them, advance in spirit status by decisions, by more decisions, and by more decisions. Well, I guess decisions are important because that's what allows us to advance in spirit status. What would be our life, even our daily living, without decision? We're constantly in a place of making decision. But what is a good decision? Is making a decision enough? Why are the revelators using the word symbol decision action? What is our decision process? Is it challenging? Can we improve it? Well, that's what we're going to see today. So in the union of our soul, we will explore how we can improve our decision making by pooling our different and rich experiences on making life-changing decision action, and especially God-seeking decisions. I'm from a French background, and I remember when I lived in Toronto the first time, someone told me, Guy, make a decision and stick with it. So that was good, and I used that many times in my life, and I think that's how we became the actor of our own life. If we're not able to make decision, if we're indecisive and all that, it's pretty challenging to live a life on this planet when we let other people decide for us. You know, we're really challenged in making decision nowadays. You know, if you go to the store, for example, in a big store, and you want to buy toothpaste, there's like 25 brand. Which one will you pick? But that's not the decision we're looking for here. We're looking at a higher level of decision. And when you're bombarded with external stimuli all the time, you know, our telephone, our computer, and all these things, it's really tough to make a decision that comes from within. So what is necessary to make these decisions? Well, there's a really interesting thing about decision in the mind arena of choice. Our own mind is an arena of choice. You want to read it, Agnès? Material mind.
But you haven't shared the screen.
No, you have the document. You don't have it?
Ah, okay. You were
I can't.
share.
I'll read the first paragraph the time you.
I thought you were going to share the
Yeah.
screen.
Oh, okay. So you have it?
Julie.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
So, the mind arena of choice. Our mind is an arena of choice. Material mind is the arena in which human personalities live, are self-conscious, make decisions, choose God or forsake Him, eternalize or destroy themselves. Material evolution has provided you a life machine, your body. The Father Himself has endowed you with the purest spirit reality known in the universe, your thought adjuster. But into your hands, subject to your own decisions, has been given mind, and it is by mind that you live or die. It is within this mind and with this mind that you make those moral decisions which enable you to achieve a just likeness, and that is godlikeness.
Okay. Already we see that we're moving from earthly decision to something of another realm. We can call them moral decision or spiritual decision, but that's something quite different. A little bit later, we will use the teaching on free will in order to understand better. What we understand is that in order to make these choices, we need to be connected. That's why we did that meditation, worshipful meditation at the beginning, because the decision needs to come from within, not accordingly to what other people do. We all have a thought adjuster. We have a personality of deified reality. We're quite equipped to make these moral decisions. So, Agnès, you want to read the next one about maintaining a living spiritual connection?
So to make the ultimate decision and act upon it, we need to. Spiritual development depends first on the maintenance of living spiritual connection with true spiritual forces, and second, on the continuous bearing of spiritual fruit, yielding the ministry to one's fellows of that which has been received from one's spiritual benefactors.
Well, what's really interesting here, thank you, Agnès, is that when we think about decision, just from the earthly perspective, it's really ego-centered. What's good for me? How can it serve me? How can it satisfy me? Here we see that even though it starts in our inner life with that connection, with our effort to maintain a living spiritual connection with true spiritual forces, it has nothing to do to be selfish. It's all about being unselfish, because when we make a moral decision, it's a decision to do God's will. And if we do God's will, it's not about us, it's about other. For sure, there's an element that is personal because we accept God to transform us. Our religious growth depends on us, but the spiritual growth comes from spirit, from God. So we need to accept to be transformed in order to start to make in a maybe smoother way these moral decisions and these spiritual choices. So we talk about the mind. You know that the mind is an amazing gift. So I don't know if any of you have followed Oriental path at one point. I did before I was a student of the Revelation, a little bit with Buddhism. And the mind, in a way, is not something that is very well looked at. It's more like a place where you become a little bit like you're in your imagination, you're in illusion. They say mine is Maya. Mine is Maya, mine is illusion. Maya means illusion. So that mind from the incomparable teachings of the Urantia book is far from being Maya. It's a cosmic tool. It's an amazing tool that is lended to us for our earthly life. And with that mind, we need to create a new mind, a morontial mind, our soul. And that mind, as we know, is the perceiving, feeling, and thinking mechanism. How many people think that the mind is just the intellectual part? And the three needs to work in triune harmony, the perceiving, the feeling, and the thinking. And it's our task to acquire a mind of perfect poise, a pure mind. You want to read the next one, Agnès?
When the development of the intellectual nature proceeds faster than that of the spiritual, such a situation renders communication with the thought adjuster both difficult and dangerous. Likewise, over-spiritual development tends to produce a fanatical and perverted interpretation of the spirit leadings of the divine indweller. Lack of spiritual capacity makes it very difficult to transmit to such a material intellect the spiritual truth resident in the higher superconsciousness. It is to the mind of perfect poise, housed in a body of clean habits, stabilized neural energies and balance chemical function when the physical, mental, and spiritual powers are in the true harmony of development, that a maximum of light and truth can be imparted with a minimum of temporal danger or risk to the real welfare of such a being. By such a balanced growth, does man ascend the circles of planetary progression one by one, from the 7th to the 1st.
Step by step. Thank you, Agnès. Step by step. It's to the mind of perfect poise, housed in a body of clean habits, when the physical, mental, and spiritual powers are in triune harmony of development, that a maximum of light and truth can be given to us. So it's our task to acquire that type of mind. And then we go about making connection with God within, that the divine spirit makes contact with mortal man not by feelings or emotion, but in the realm of the highest and most spiritualized thinking. So the thought adjuster doesn't adjust our thought, a single thought or all our thoughts. He adjusts our thinking process. It is our thoughts, not your feeling, that lead you Godward. The divine nature may be perceived only with the eyes of the mind, but the mind that really discerns God, hears the indwelling spirit, is the pure mind. So how can we purify our mind? How can we make that mind works for you? How we can be a good custodian, a good manager, and a good user of the mind? We're not the thoughts, we're the thinker behind it. I'm not the personality is not the thoughts, neither the body, neither the soul, not even the spirit. It's the personality that is the thinker. So to purify our mind, in order to make these God-seeking decisions, we need to face our mental poison first. That's the big plus for us. So, and there's quite a few. They enumerate a few here in the next quote, but there's many more. You want to go ahead, Agnès?
The divine spirit makes contact
No,
with...
the one after that. Face our own mental poison.
Okay. The adjuster remains with you in all disaster and through every sickness, which does not wholly destroy the mentality, but how unkind, not knowingly to defile or otherwise deliberately to pollute the physical body, which must serve as the earthly tabernacle of this marvelous gift from God. All physical poisons greatly retard the efforts of the adjuster to exalt the material mind, while the mental poisons of fear, anger, envy, jealousy, suspicion, and intolerance likewise tremendously interfere with the spiritual progress of the evolving soul.
So I don't know if you noticed that, but very seldom do revelators use not exaggeration, superlative, but here they do. The mental poison tremendously interfere with the spiritual progress. So envy, jealousy, vanity, pride, all of that interfere with the work of the adjuster to make the soul grow. So here's another one about how we can purify the mind, and we're going to stay on that one a little bit. We need to obliterate the dead center of the indecision. You want to read the next quote, Agnès?
The one that you've just read.
No, you must make first.
You must make a wholehearted choice of the divine will. You must obliterate the dead center of indecision.
Wow, obliterate. That's a really powerful word. When I mentioned that to a few friends, they told me that you know, maybe it's too strong of a word, but that comes from the chief of the Midwayer. The Midwayer are the closest to us. They're permanent residents on this planet. So you think that Doug has trouble? Do you see him on the screen? Okay. He has trouble making decision. So let's look at indecision. What is the cause of indecision? How many times, you know, I remember when I started studying the Urantia book 21 years ago, the 3 questions were how long you've been reading the book, how many times have you read it, and what is God's will? So it's tough to make the decision to do God's will if you don't know what it is. So I felt that there was some of that indecision. So we did some research on indecision, and we're going to share it with you. You want to go ahead, Agnès?
Yes.
You don't
So
need to.
indecision.
You don't need to read. You can just share if you want.
Well, inability to make a choice, of course, and fear of giving up many other opportunities. When we choose, well, all the rest has to just vanish away. So it's very difficult for many of us to say, okay, I'm going to choose something, and all the rest is going to disappear. We're afraid of making, well, I say we, but I know that I was afraid of making a wrong choice, a choice, inappropriated choice. Sometimes we do have problems dealing with or not willing to deal with the consequences of our choices, because there are always consequences. The refusal to mourn the choice that was not made as well. And we like to be in control, and if my decision doesn't enable me to be in control, that puts me in a very uncomfortable situation. Refusal to commit and taking risks. Am I adventurous enough to take risks? And stagnation due to perfectionism. But I know that it's just in Belgium people suffer from perfectionism, but not elsewhere on the, no. But of course, that when we suffer from perfectionism, well, we're always afraid that the decision is not going to be the good one. And so it's, and am I going to be able to deal with what's going to come after that? Because morality, I like this definition of morality in the book somewhere. They say that morality is taking responsibility for everything that that comes from my acting or my saying. So of course, am I willing to all that or not? And there is something that I would like to say. It is that we all know that God is within us, but do we want to be in Him? And am I going to make that decision of being within Him? Because that's going to be a life-changing decision. Yes, Guy. Maybe we can ask everybody, do you, well, I mentioned a few of them. Do you recognize yourself in a few that have been mentioned? Or maybe that you've got your own, which are quite interesting to be shared as well?
And how do you overcome it if you did? Well, indecision is a big blockage. So, and I think we all have been indecisive in our life. And is it the same thing as doubt? Is it the same thing? It's good to clarify these things. So yes. Who's willing to share something on that?
I'll jump in. This is Brian.
Okay, and Brian, after you, Sherry, and after you, Kurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so perfectionism, yeah, that's a biggie, ain't it? So I'm a psychologist, and so I know a thing or two about it, both personally and in practice, but or professionally. But looking back on my life, notice how at the age of about 12, I started really developing some strong perfectionistic tendencies. You look at the psychology literature, that happens. It's right about that age, puberty, that a lot of people start developing. Not everyone, of course, but those that do. And that perfectionism is, as you, Agnes, a very different project than the seeking of God's perfection. But in my life, I'd say that it's just been a very gradual and painful experience over the years of learning to let go of it, to let go. It's not like, dropping a baseball or something. It hurts, and it's repetitive, and it's going round and round circles, and finally getting better. So it's good to be 68.
I'm 68 too. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of effort. That hurts.
Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for sharing it, not only from your own perspective, your own experience, but your experience as a psychologist, and how difficult it is to for people that decision making.
Yeah, if I can throw that in too, that actually the obsessive compulsive perfectionistic tendency is one of the most common that you run into as a psychologist, as a psychotherapist, and it's just incredibly pervasive. And just to, I don't know if this really helps, but probably will help some people to just understand that the actual obsessive compulsive, what they call personality disorder or character disorder,
Yes.
psychiatrically, is about 7-8% of the population. I mean, that's a big chunk of people have it to a severe degree of this perfectionism we're talking about. So, and then a lot of people, of course, have it to a lesser degree, and wouldn't be diagnosable, but it's still problematic in terms of their spiritual lives and so forth. So it's something to really be alert to in ourselves and others.
Thank you. The great thing about that is when we grow up, we think in a way that perfectionism is good. We think that we want everything perfect and all that, but we're not perfect. And it's a big flaw because we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and therefore a lot of pressure on other people. You want people, the other people, you ask for other people to be perfect, and we're humble, ascending mortal, so far from perfection. So that's a big thing. And it's interesting that they connect indecision with perfectionism. It's not only the people that have that trait that suffer from indecision. So that's why it's so powerful when the chief of midwifery say eradicate or obliterate the dead center of indecision. Okay, we have
Kurt, and then we've got Doreen and Gilles.
no, there was a Sherry behind before Kurt. No, Sherry didn't raise her hand. Okay.
Well, I am now.
Okay.
I'll go ahead real quick. Really brought up a really profound question for me, this topic. When I was listening to Agnès talk about the various reasons why we often feel like we can't make a decision, for me personally, one of the first things that arose was the fear of missed opportunities. Because I have a personality that likes to experience everything. I don't want to miss anything in life. I want to grab everything. I want to learn everything. I want to experience everything, which is a positive force on the one hand, but it has often led me to being indecisive because I didn't want to miss an opportunity. So I resonated with that. But the more profound question arose in me that was like, oh, who and what do I trust? What is my basis for making a decision? So I went right to that core, is like, maybe it's going to be really helpful for me to start asking, what's the motivation behind your decision? What are you basing your decisions on? And another confession here that I'm working through. I'm improved with this, but I've still got remnants of basing decisions on pleasing other people. Will this be pleasing to them? Will this be pleasing to her, to him? I even get caught up in, will God be pleased by this decision? And so, yes, so the long and short of it is, I like that arose in my mind to start questioning what is the ground of your decision? Where is the ground of your decision coming from? Is it coming from old habits? Is it coming from history? Is it coming from social expectations? Or is it really coming from the voice of truth and the spirit of truth within?
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Is
you.
it coming from expectation of others? Like you say, if you're
Yes.
a people pleaser.
Yes.
You know, there's something here that's really good, and then we'll go to Kurt. The feeling, the refusal to mourn the choice that was not made. That's pretty good, huh? That's pretty. The fear of having to give up all opportunities. How many husbands you got, Sherry? you have the choice between 5 or 6. Okay, thank you. That was very good.
It reminded me of something. It was when I was traveling. I would have liked to visit. If I go to Italy, I want to see everything in Italy, all the places. If I go to England, everything. But it was not possible. So I had a problem, and I turned to God. And I said, okay, how can I deal with that problem? And so I started reading the Urantia book, and then I was putting my focus on going everywhere where Jesus went. And I felt much at peace with that, and asking him, well, I know that I'm not going to see everything, but please lead me where something significant for me is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever I go, something significant in my relationship to you is going to happen. And I really felt at peace with that, really. So whenever it is, I'm dealing with my decisions with God, and I know that all decisions can have a higher signification in meaning in my relationship to him. And so that's what I'm seeking for now. But I suffered a lot of what you were talking about. Yes. Thank you for sharing.
Oh,
Kurt?
goodness.
I would just throw in too, real quick, the idea of regrets. I think the quote from the book that helps so much with all those kinds of things is to just remind ourselves, all things, not a few things, all things work to the good for those who love God. And every mistake we make, as well as every good thing we did. And if we remember that, we know we're trusting we can learn from all those experiences or lack of experiences. So that keeps it on a more even keel for me.
It's better to make a bad decision than no decision at all. Very true. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for reminding us. Kurt.
Well, my friend Brian, who I hadn't seen in a couple of years, like we were going to have to get together on Zoom, took exactly the things I was going to talk about. It's this perfectionism that I have that keeps me from getting things done. What's that about? It's kind of fear and pride. It's fear of looking like a fool. My pride wants me to always look good. It's the ego, and boy, does that keep me from getting things done. And it also feeds my laziness. Can I have a little bit of a natural laziness? Well, if I throw the little fear and pride and perfectionism in there, I can sit on my butt for a long, long time without doing things. What I wanted to touch on was my ways that I've been working on to deal with those things. And the biggest thing I can say is turning to God on a regular basis, making that a habit in my life. That every morning I start now with putting a prayer and gratitude journal and asking, for the insights that I need. And there's a technique that I want to share that I've found really helps me the most. And that's that after I write that letter to God and spend a little time in just silence, I'll write a letter back from God, as I would imagine God writing to me. And if you've never tried this, it's a technique that does almost magical things. I think it taps into our soul mind and allows me to help myself by using the very highest values and ideals that I have, that to remind myself of those things that I often forget about. When I imagine God writing back to me, I find that any kind of feelings I have of shame and anything like that gets completely put aside. That it's invariably comes from the most loving place and the most encouraging place, and it really does some magical things. And if you've never tried this little exercise, give it a try. It really works. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. I did that many times in the workshop, and it really does miracle. It's pretty amazing. You know what's really good, what you mentioned, Brian and Kirk, is when you read the sentence before the must obliterate the dead center, it's you must make a wholehearted choice of the divine will first, and then you're equipped to obliterate that dead center. You're not able to obliterate that center alone. And thank you for reminding us, Kirk. That was right on. Who's next? Doreen?
It was Doreen, then Gilles, and then David.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much. I have a story to tell, but before I do that, indecisions, it's not only about you, it's about the people you affect around you. When you make a decision, okay, it's not only my life, but it's friends and family and children. And it's like one of those things that just go out and out, and it affects everybody's life. So it depends what it is. But I'll tell you a quick story, and I speak quickly. So years ago, I was at a conference, and I was an officer in the organization, one of the organizations. And the meeting was over, and I'm walking out, and there was this gentleman standing in the corner, and I walked by him, and I said, "Oh, what's the matter? You look so sad." And he started to attack me verbally. And he really, I was in shock. I never said a word. I stood there, and he just went for the soul. He stuck a knife in my soul. I couldn't believe it. It was if, he took my most vulnerable part of me. Anyway, and all of a sudden, I knew not to talk to crazy people. And he looked, really something was wrong. So I just said, "I'm sorry you feel that way," and walked away. The reason was I had the power over a decision that he wanted me to make in the wrong direction that I thought. Anyway, so I started to cry, not sobbing, but the tears were running out of me like Niagara Falls. It just kept flowing and flowing. And I wasn't alone. Now I'm with a lot of people who were in the car. They were going to a study group. And I went to a private room, and I couldn't stop crying, and I couldn't tell anybody why. It was just horrible. And I've been meditating for decades and decades, so I can go very deep. I could lift the energy around me. It was always so easy, no problem at all, but not this time. It didn't work. And I'm saying, "God, why can't this stop? I have to stop crying. I've got to get on a plane." And it just wouldn't. Well, it was a good 2 hours. And I'm telling you, all of a sudden it came to me to pray for him, not for myself, to stop crying. The moment I started to pray for him, because he was sick, the Spirit came right over the top of my head, right to the bottom of my toes. It just went through me, and I began to laugh. And it just lifted this cloud, and it was just like, oh my God, how he works is so beautiful. And that was one of the stories that I wanted to share. So, sometimes, you have to look beyond yourself and see where the issues really lie. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing, Doreen. That's really, whatever we read or whatever we share doesn't have much value until we experience it. And your experiences are really powerful. Everything that was shared so far, Brian, Kirk, you, Doreen, and the others, it's Sherry. Indecision is really tricky because it's this. Agnès will read about this avoidance behavior. I'm sure it can be pretty well complete with all your years as a psychotherapist, Brian. But the indecisive person has a lot of it has a lot of consequence on themselves and on the environment. So Agnès will read a few of them.
Yeah. So the consequences. The avoidance behavior is not without consequences on the psychological state and is often harmful on the psychology of the undecided. Well, there's some permanent doubt, lack of self-confidence, questioning, passivity, lack of action, procrastination, withdrawal, isolation, blocking, inability to seize opportunities, anxiety disorder, anguish, panic attacks.
And do you want the indecision are more or less important consequences on the entourage as well. The indecisive person cannot make a choice or take responsibility, so he or she blames the consequence on those around him or her. So it's really not easy to be, it's not a good idea to make decision for others, because if the decision is bad, then they will blame you. It's your fault. You make a decision. When you have kids, sometime when they're really young, you don't have the choice, but the quicker you bring them to make their own decision, with some wisdom coming from you, the better it is. There's nothing worse than making decision for kids that don't grow, because it's where the decision that they grow up. Okay, so
I would like to, because
go ahead.
It's really something that makes sense. It is the butterfly effect. And the butterfly effect is an idea that is more commonly used in chaos theory. But they say that a small change can make much bigger changes happen. One small incident can have a big impact on the future. And as Doreen was saying, it's not just on our future, because we are in relation with others. And so how hard it can be sometimes to make those life-changing experiences when you're a mother and that you know that you want to divorce and that you're going to change the geography of your children's life. And that is really something that you don't take it as a decision just like that. You take time, and with God. So yes, thank you for all these. We had Gilles who wanted to share something, Guy, and then David as well before we go on.
Okay, go ahead, Gilles. Gilles is on his skis. That's amazing, considering we're in June. So maybe he's down under in New Zealand. Gilles, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Yeah.
Okay. Can we see you?
Yeah.
Ah, voila. A good-looking guy like you. You made a decision to put your video on. That's good.
Well, a little bit like a ship.
Yeah.
So you wanted to share, Gilles?
Oh, well, earlier I wanted to make a comment. I wanted to react about the discussion around and the comments around perfectionism. What I understood is the comments were like saying like perfectionism is not good, right? And I was a bit surprised to hear that because I think I have actually the opposite standpoint. Because if you think about it, we have covered some decisions. He was mentioning that there are some decisions like the very casual, like earthly decisions, you know, what you're going to do, what you're going to eat, with toothpaste, and so on and so forth, that are not really the decisions we're talking about, but they are there. Then maybe we have a great decision to make. That's probably what we're talking about, obliterating the dead center. So there are some like big decisions in life, big moral, ethical decisions. But to me, they don't happen like every day. There are not 10 decisions a day of that kind, in my personal experience at least. So it seems to me that we have another big realms of decisions that are about mastering our mind. It's about working with all the soul aspects of what's going on in our mind, in our emotions. And to me, this is where there are a lot of actions in our mind to take so that we can, over time, take control and master our own behavior. And to me, there seems to be a lot of perfectionism involved to do that work. Because otherwise, if you're not a perfectionist, you let go everything. Oh, yeah, I have these emotions. Oh, I have these things going on in my mind. Oh, it's okay, it's no problem. I mean, if you really want to get on the road and move forward, like seriously, you got to tackle everything that is going on in your mind. And to me, that's perfectionism, or a form of perfectionism. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Thank you, Gilles. I'm sure Brian has probably comments on that. And what we learn, Agnès and I, in consultation is that there's quite a difference between seeking excellence and be perfectionist. I think we all try to do our best. And if we want to do our best, we do it with what's the best in us with our thought adjuster. Perfectionism in every psychology literature that I read, even conscious psychology, was seeing it more as an obstacle to many things. So we have David and then Sherry. Thank you, Gilles, for your comment.
Hi, can you hear me, guys?
Yes. We don't see you, though.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm in the dark. So I just want to
We'll
recap.
bring you in the light. Well, let's pray a minute.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm in
you're
the
back
light.
in the light. Okay.
I'm in the light in the dark.
Okay.
So yeah, just some really interesting things everybody's bringing up. Kurt and Doreen and everyone else, and I just want to run through them. So the power of forgiveness was mentioned. So forgiveness for our own personal atonement was touching. I thought, I always remember that as sometimes, grievance often causes delay. And I also remember there's a quote which is, in the more advanced planetary ages, these seraphim, the seraphim of trust, enhance man's appreciation of the truth that uncertainty is the secret of contented continuity. So I think we're all dealing with uncertainty, and I want to move on to the next point about how our divine ideas, we're all aware of this because we read Urantia, our divine ideas as sons of God entering into the kingdom of heaven, they multiply, and our divine ideals become exponential, so to the square of what we can achieve, so we can see vast realms of possibility. But we know that we only have what's in front of us to be able to achieve. So there is that pressure from above impacting the below. And in reference to the dead center, you can always tell because of some things Jesus said. He said, seek first. And that seeking first is moving the dead center. The I hunger and the I thirst are the action which breaks up the prison of inaction. So I just thought I'd add those. For me, those are kind of affirmations which I use. And then this is something, Jesus made 6 great decisions. And I want to just run through this one here. And Jesus, it says, by these decisions, Jesus set a worthy example for every person on every world throughout a vast universe when he refused to apply material tests to prove spiritual problems. Now, I just want to, material tests, I have to do this to solve my spiritual problems. Well, no, you don't. All you have to do is seek first the kingdom of God as the Son of God, and that there is no material test for that, for your spiritual problems. The only test is the spiritual test of you making that faith connection with the Father in heaven. So I just wanted to go through that. And then obviously I also want to, just for me personally, to all of you, my brothers and sisters in the blessings of Urantia, I want to just read this last one, which is about our kingdom of heaven. Jesus chose to establish the kingdom of heaven in our hearts by natural, ordinary, difficult, and trying methods, just such procedures as his earth children must subsequently follow in their work of enlarging and extending that heavenly kingdom. So yeah, really enjoying your sharing, everybody, and that's the end of my comments for now.
Thank you.
David.
Thank you, David.
So there are the 2 cherries.
The 2 cherries. Yeah.
Thank you, Guy and Agnès. This is really stimulating spiritually and intellectually. You know, when I think about what it means to make decisions, what I have experienced and learned is that is my default setting, to always seek the Father's will on every moral choice that is presented to me. It is such a habit that I don't have to think about it anymore. I've practiced it for so many years because we learned in our study group that the answer to almost every question that we can ask as it relates to our spiritual journey and our relationship with the Father, I believe, is, what is your will for me regarding this? And how can I empower me to execute your will in this situation? And what I'm learning about myself is these moral tests are such because I have an inner conflict, right? I want something or I don't want something. And so the opportunity says, will you choose what you don't want or what you do want over what is best for all concerned? And so an example is recently I have a senior citizen mother who has some financial challenges, and I looked at her budget and it was surprising to me, and I realized she needed help. And the reason why she needed help was because she had used some, she had made some financial decisions that I wish that she had not made in the past. And they were catching up with her and providing her with a lot of stress and pressure. And I wanted to help her, but part of me was resentful for having to do so. I had the choice of paying down her debts or alleviating some of her debts or doing nothing at all. And so I prayed and asked for the Father's will. And not only did I do that, but I thought about Jesus' attitude towards his family, his mother, his brothers and sisters, and how his first priority was always to do everything he could to help his family financially, spiritually. And then I thought about what I would want, how I'd want to be treated were I in that situation. And then I reasoned it out with a few friends who had parents who were seniors and who had had similar circumstances, and asked how they worked through those issues. And then I made a decision that I was willing to do X, and I felt that I could do X, and that my resentment would need to turn into understanding. So I said, okay, Sherry, where have you in your past made hard financial decisions that really negatively impacted you? And I had so many of those experiences, I couldn't count them. And then I said, okay, you've been in her shoes. You may be in her shoes again. It is not for you to judge or criticize. It is to help if you can. So when I made that decision, I felt this peace. I didn't feel agitated. I didn't feel irritable. I didn't feel resentful. I felt peace. So I went to my mother and I said, Mother, I think you need some help. I think I can help you. And here's how I think I can help you. Would you agree to letting me help you with this? And she started to cry. And she said, thank you, Jesus. And then she thanked me. And we went about securing those changes that would help her. So I already know that the problem that presents itself is because there's something in me that's resisting. And if I'm not willing to see myself fully and clearly, my warts and all, then the moral opportunity that presents itself will be of no advantage to me. I have to be willing to look at myself and my stuff, and then look at God, and then decide which way is the best way. Who is it that I want to be, as opposed to who am I today? And that always works for me. It always works for me. Does it mean that I don't get what I want? Yes. Does it mean that, does it mean that there's something in the situation that I wish weren't happening? Well, yeah. But if this thing is better, if I have the ability to help, then God has put me in that position. I have a girlfriend who says, she's the dean of a huge Ivy League school. So she makes a good salary, and she says, I already know that only a portion of this money is for me. My other portion of my salary is a pass-through. And I said, how do you know that? She said, because I know that God has put me in this position so that I can help others. And that's how I feel. God has allowed me to be where I am so that I can help my mother. And I'm so grateful to be able to do that. So it's always more pleasant at the end to do God's will over mine, because I feel better. I feel like, he and I are working together. Does it mean that I can't change my mind? No, I can. If circumstances change, I can change my mind, but I'll go back to God and reassess. So all decisions are self-correcting, right? They're not forever. They're for now, until circumstances change, and until I change even more. So that's one of the things I wanted to share is my experience around decision making and how it has become a habit just to seek the Father's will during moral opportunities, not into picking my toothpaste.
Very good.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, Guy, is if you could expound a little bit more on our thought adjuster does not change our thoughts. He works to change our thinking processes. Would you expand a little bit more on that, if you would?
Well, it's obviously my perception. It's my interpretation. It might be really limited too. But before I was a student of the Urantia book, I was in the School of Consciousness, and they talk about that. They talk about the pensée in French is thought. And penser, the verb, is the thinking process. And if you look at the ajusteur de pensée or thought adjuster, it's not plural. It's like one thought with a capital T. And it has, for me, it means more like he's adjust. He cannot. We have how many thoughts per day? Thousands. He cannot adjust each thought, but he can surely adjust our process of thinking, elevate our thinking process. And I think when I look at the capital T and without no S, that's the way I perceive it. And it works for me. I don't know if it works for others. I think what's important, we're all unique and original, and we have a God-given personality. And it came to me at one point when I made the connection with the other teaching I was following before. Okay.
Guy, can I just add something
Thank
quick
you.
to the adjuster thing?
Yeah, hold on,
Sherry?
David. David, hold on. Another thing, Sherry, that was really good when you were talking. We have a member in our study group. She's 87 years old. She's been doing prison ministry for 30 years as a volunteer. She started an organization. She's a pretty amazing woman. And her prayer, we all pray at the end of the study group, and her prayer is always the same. Thank you, God, for giving me what I need. And thank you, God, for not giving me things that I want, but I don't need. That's pretty powerful. It's very simple, but very powerful. There's a lot of wisdom in there. Go ahead, David.
And trust. Yeah.
Trust.
Yeah, so the adjuster is first off father-child. First off, it's God. So God is just a conceptual cornucopia of ideas. And when you say father, that's a direct personal child to father relationship that the adjuster uses. Then the adjuster shifts to the daughter or the sonship consciousness. And then to the woman consciousness. So the adjuster's job is very simple. The adjuster's job is to get you to be aware of your sonship, not only of you as an individual son or daughter of God, but also to be aware of the will of the Son, because the Father's will is to get you to do the Creator's Son's will in any and every single situation.
Mm-hmm. That's the leading of the Spirit of Truth. To be a son of God involved in unselfish service. Thank you, David. Sherry, you want? Yeah, okay. You're on mute, Sherry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought she said someone else was ahead of me. This is just real short. I was looping back to the word perfectionism. And first of all, I came across a quote recently on my travels from Vince Lombardi. Some of the people might know him as a famous football coach. He said, perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we sometimes can catch excellence. And I liked that word excellence. That really helped me as a person that also has struggled with a certain degree of perfectionism. a lot of perfectionism. I knew Guy was going to jump in and say that to me. But
especially making your bed.
The word excellence is doable. The word excellence,
Yeah.
it has a good vibration. It has a lovely feeling when I think of the word excellence, trying to do my excellence. But the other thing that I wanted to say was, in my view, perfectionism is not compatible with contentment. And I'm starting to want to consciously, very mindfully practice what contentment feels like in my everyday, ordinary life. Regardless of whether I'm in an exalted state with all these beautiful souls like I am right now, or whether I'm scrubbing my toilet. I'm serious. I want to know what contentment feels like, the contentment, this inner contentment. And I used to think contentment would lead to stagnation. I am completely knowing the difference between that now. You can be content and still be an active personality seeking excellence to do God's will. There, I just brought all those dots together. So anyway, my main point to share was, in my mind, in my heart, I'm not sure being a perfectionist, a rigid perfectionist, can be compatible with also feeling content. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes.
Inner contentment. That's a state of being. Thank you. We'll share something else, David, because we have a few things. So we talk about acquiring a mind of perfect poise. And in order to do that, we need to do some cleaning, purification. One of them that we sticked on was indecision, how to obliterate the dead center of indecision. Another point is wholeheartedly commit to the program of faith. We know that faith provides for the sevenfold salvation, especially the first three, if you think about it. Salvation from material fetters, in the personal realization of sonship with God, who is spirit. That's David talked about that. Salvation from intellectual bondage. Man shall know the truth, and the truth shall set him free. Well, we know the truth, the spiritual truth that set us free in our soul. And our soul is a better mind, a higher mind that perceive, feel, think, act, love, interact with other people much better. And finally, the salvation from spiritual blindness, the human realization of the fraternity of mortal beings, and the morontial awareness of the brotherhood of all universe creature, the service discovery of spiritual reality. So we discover spiritual reality in service. So those are the points, and obviously the three pillars of spiritual progression are worship, prayer, and unselfish service. There's no way out of it. If we want to grow, that's the way we can grow. So all of these elements really helps us in doing those God-seeking decision. And yes, would you like to write the quote on maturity? That's the point 5, gaining spiritual maturity.
In the maturity of the developing self, the past and future are brought together to illuminate the true meaning of the present. As the self matures, it reaches further and further back into the past for experience, while its wisdom forecasts seek to penetrate deeper and deeper into the unknown future. And as the conceiving self extends, this reach ever further into both past and future, so does judgment become less and less dependent on the momentary present. In this way, does decision action begin to escape from the fetters of the moving present, while it begins to take on the aspects of past-future signification.
That's pretty powerful. Judgment become less and less dependent on the momentary present. So these God-seeking decision is connected with the eternal now or the everlasting now. Okay, any comment on that one? Brian, you have your mic open, so maybe you're ready to go.
Baxter as well.
Baxter, go ahead, and maybe Brian after if Brian is ready.
Thank you. Yeah, I find there's an interesting personal consequence to decision making, and it seems to revolve around the difference between a righteous deed and a good deed. And I'll try to give an example of what I mean by that. If I'm walking down the street and you're walking down the street ahead of me and your wallet falls out of your pocket, if I rush and I pick up the wallet and I think for a moment, just for a moment, I think, oh man, you know, I could really use that money. No. And then I rush up and I give you your wallet. That's a good deed. But a righteous deed is when I see your wallet fall, I scoop it up and without any thought, whatever, you drop your wallet and you take your wallet. Now the difference here, that's a righteous deed as opposed to a good deed. The difference is that a righteous deed, you don't even remember doing it. If I did a good deed, the rest of the day I would feel good about having overcome my temptation and giving you back wallet. If I do a righteous deed, 2 minutes later, I've forgotten about it. Now, the consequence I'm talking about, the personal consequence of the difference between a good deed and a righteous deed and decision making is that as you improve yourself, you're unaware of it. And this is where patience comes in. You need to have faith and patience, because faith gives you the long goal, or it gives you the long goal. It tells you, okay, I want to achieve this. But patience gives you the incremental steps that you can achieve. And there's nothing wrong with there's a personal evaluation and an impersonal evaluation. If I look at you, Yugi, and I say, he is a good man, and that's my evaluation of you. He's a good man. If I look at myself and say, oh, I'm a good man, well, there's something wrong with that. But if I can give myself the same evaluation, using the same impersonal evaluation as I give you, then I can be patient with my faults and simply overcome them rather than becoming burdened by my faults. I'm not sure just how that all ties together, but in my mind, it's all one thought having to do with decision-making and the personal consequence of that. I would leave that with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Baxter. That's really good. For me, it's the difference between self-control and self-mastery. Self-control is, I know I shouldn't do that. Self-mastery is I don't even ask myself the question anymore. So that's really good, because self-mastery has a lot to do with God-seeking decision. Thank you very much.
Talking about the way I see with the self-control and mastering, it is, well, we know there's an expression in English, chase the natural and it comes back. And I don't know if there's an English expression for that, but it means that if you try to control yourself, you're not changing. You're just trying to control, and you control once, you control twice, but you're not going to always control. But master, for me, the master within me is my thought adjuster. And so when I see that I'm going to exactly do the same thing again and again and again, I'm going to obtain exactly the same results. And I'm not satisfied with the results because I'm not a better person with that. Well, I turn to God within and I say, you are the master. And I want to master this situation now. I want to deal with this situation with a higher sense of signification. So you are going to help me. You're going to use this situation to transform me, because I have that deep desire to be transformed in this situation. I'm fed up having the same behavior, the same answer to this kind of situation. And so I turn to the master within, and the master within is my thought adjuster. And there something happens.
That's where we are transformed. and we need to accept it and ask it. Thank you very much, Agnès. Brian and Baxter, you have your hand raised again, so maybe you want to add something. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, thanks. I had a couple thoughts. One is on this word excellence, and I agree that there's a kind of excellence that our lives can portray. At the same time, I just think human life, with all its material limitations, the illnesses, the mental semi-delusions, and whatever else that we all engage in from time to time, at least, it really leads to, and it's something certain I've had to communicate many times to patients, is really right now, and for many people through a good part of their lives, if not a lot, is to muddle through with faith, to maintain their faith as they deal with the book of Job kind of life. That doesn't feel like excellence whatsoever. There's no experience of excellence in that. And yet, I think from the Father's view, it is. So it's a piece that I think we have to remind ourselves that we can be trying to charge forth in an excellent way, and life can just pull the rug right from under our feet. And we're not going to feel so excellent about things. I'm sure other people have had that experience. Hey.
Brian, I think there's an amazing quote that connects exactly with what you just said, sorry. And it says, "The career of a God-seeking man may prove to be a great success in the light of eternity, even though the whole temporal life enterprise may appear as an overwhelming failure, provide each life failure yield the culture of wisdom and spirit achievement." That's basically all of us have talked today. Thank you for bringing that up, Brian. Excellence from a spiritual perspective is we're growing spiritually, whatever happened. It doesn't matter. If it makes us grow spiritually, it's a success in the light of eternity. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, Doreen, David, we'll come back to you. We tried to have everybody share if they, to give an opportunity to everybody. Go ahead, Doreen, and then we'll go to David.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say all growth is unconscious. So, the act is ours, the consequence is God. You don't think about it, you just do. And it's led by the Spirit. But I wanted to answer Sherry's question that she asked about how God works in your mind. How do you know? Well, at this stage, there's different stages, but at this stage, I started to recognize the connection between my thought adjuster and myself in my thoughts. It's not even saying anything, but it was, if I take a position of being defensive, say somebody says something to me, and in my mind, I'm going to defend that position or that idea, right away, I get this very strong impression in my head. It always feels like somebody's touching you on top. And as soon as I recognize that I shouldn't go there, it stops and it leaves me alone. And this is going on for several years now. And it's very hard to change your habits, the way you think and how you were brought up. And but at some point, it really does change you. It's a reminder. The Spirit, they have to plan for your life. So like you said, the thought adjuster leads you. It controls you, it adjusts you, and it's all of the above. And when, you have that connection, because you have to keep that door open to the Spirit, where is it taking you? And trust it. And I'm telling you, it never let me down. It has given me a marvelous life, bad beginning, but a marvelous, even showed me my future. My husband was going to die. It's so many things happen when that door is open, and just allow it. Don't fight it. So I'm telling you, it's like once you establish this rapport, this connection, it doesn't go away. It doesn't mean they're going to tell you how to live or anything like that. But sometimes if it's important for you to know the vision you will see, maybe in your dreams or something, but they're always there right away trying to help you because it's their future as well. Enough. Thank you.
Yeah, very true. They're getting more and more personal. You know, it reminds me of two things. First, a book that I really appreciate. I put quotes of the Urantia book with it. It's a book called Opening the Doors Within by Eileen Caddy. It's really good. If you don't know it, check it out, because it's like your thought adjuster talking to you, and it never contradicts anything of the teaching of the Urantia book. Secondly, I remember I was in a study group at one point with Marvin and Gard and a few others, and one guy was there visiting, and we're reading the part where in the first 20 years it's called the thought adjuster, then at 40 it's called the thought adjuster, and then the thought controller. And then the guy that was there convinced all of us that it was named in a regular world. If you turn to God, obviously, there's certain condition, but thought adjuster becomes the thought controller around 60 years old. And I just happened to turn 60 that year, and I say, it's really good, because in all many comments that were made today, I really feel letting go of our thoughts and letting God connect. I know, a little bit like Einstein said at the end of his life, I want to know what God thinks. So we want to know what our thought adjuster thinks and connect with that thought and act accordingly. So thank you, Doreen. It was really good. David.
Yeah, I just want to refer generally to the Urantia principles around the concept of perfection, in reference to what Sherry and several other people are talking about. In Urantia book, in the foreword, there's three kinds of perfection, and we're talking about qualitative forms of perfection, not physical perfection, because there's no such thing as perfection in the finite universes. So there's no perfection anywhere. There's relative perfection, and then there's absolute perfection. So in our minds, we can experience no perfection anywhere. We can experience relative perfections, which are another form of saying achievements, because we have all achieved relative and cumulative perfections, and there is absolute perfection. Now, in order to understand those things in terms of Urantia, the primary conceptual framework is that the adjuster is a paradise perfection spirit. The adjuster is made of perfection. So in forgiveness, which opens the doors to the kingdom of heaven, perfection becomes available to you because you have peace. And the first thing you're supposed to do when you have that peace and forgiveness is share it with everybody else. So the yoke is easy. It's not about striving and attainment. It's about an easy effort of living in perfection. And perfection in the kingdom of heaven is typified by that thing we call grace. So grace means that we're graceful, gracious to one another. We all love one another as ourselves, and we realized it's more blessed to give and to bestow perfection upon each other, so we can all bless each other with the spirit of perfection. And just to finish off with the concepts of perfection, when we live in the kingdom of heaven, that is a realm of perfection, and we grow cumulatively through experiences of growth in the kingdom. So that for us is a stabilizing process of living in two things which are essential for every son and daughter of God, and that is perfection of consecration. So you're consecrated to doing your Father's will, and you have perfection of intention. Once you have those things, you're in the kingdom, and the spirit of perfection indwells you in your, not only in your mind, but also in your heart and in the minds and hearts of us, each other, our brothers and sisters.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Pablo, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Guy. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm going out of the building, and just before the street, there are some stairs. So I go down the stairs. And at the end of the stairs, there is an old person trying to go up, okay, to go into the building. So I get an illustration in my mind that is dangerous for him to go up alone, for example, because I see him too old, for example. Yes. So I get that illustration. So my adjuster give me a picturization, me helping him to go up. Okay. I can get that picturization. I can get that meaning in my mind, but I have to do something. First, I have to make the decision. Make the decision, but it's optative. It depends on me if I want to take that decision or not. And after I take the decision, I have to do it, not to do it for real. So the adjuster can give me an example of how I should act in that moment, for example. But at the end, it depends on me. It depends if I want to do it or not. Mm-hmm. So once we go more mature, more spiritual mature, maybe we can get the information, get the illustration better from our adjuster, mm-hmm. and make it real, doing actions. But it all depends, as you say, of making our own decisions. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pablo.
Pablo, yes. I love that. I love that illustration because that's exactly how I experience things, either in a visualization or a thought. And during study group, we talk about the thought adjuster presenting urges, right? So by urges, it could be, why don't you call so-and-so? You haven't talked to her in a while, see if she's okay. Or, why don't I share this bucket of peaches with my neighbor who loves peaches? I can't eat all these peaches. I mean, whatever it is, I know that the adjuster presents something, and we were taught in our study group that most of us tend to ignore those presentations. But if you don't choose to ignore it, if you actually choose to say hello to that person, even though you really just wanted to sit quietly on the plane and have, some me time, and your thought just says, why don't you say hello to your seatmate? And you actually do. You might end up having a conversation that is really beneficial to you both. And I tell you, I'm very aware of when I choose to listen to that voice and when I don't. But they're always coming, coming. And the other day, my husband was telling me that he had learned that one of his childhood friends had recently passed. And he said, honey, I was just thinking about calling him 2 weeks ago because I hadn't seen him in so long. And then I learned that he was sick. And so I meant to call him. And now I learned that he's gone. Mm-hmm. And I said, honey, when that happens, when you get those urges in your mind, that's the spirit talking to you. And he said, so should I pay attention to that? And I said, try and pay attention. And so that's a beautiful illustration. Thank you, Pablo.
Well, let me read. Thank you very much, both of you.
Yeah,
There's something, a powerful quote here. In the mortal life, paths of differential conduct are continually opening and closing. And during the times when choice is possible, the human personality is constantly deciding between these many courses of action. Temporal volition is linked to time, and it must await the passing of time to find opportunity for expression. Spiritual volition has begun to taste a liberation from the fetters of time, having achieved partial escape from time sequence. And that is because spiritual volition is self-identifying with the will of God. Obviously, we could talk 2 hours just on that, but that's really powerful. Then when we decide wholeheartedly to make God's will, things start to happen. And doing God's will is allowing God to transform you, because the ideal of God is to become you, to become us, for the thought just to personalize. So I think we forget sometimes this in our equation. So we have only a few minutes. Another element that helps purify the mind is to gain awareness, to raise our standard, and to raise our level of consciousness. So, as many said, you know, we're creature of habits. So developing religious and spiritual habits is not an easy task, as Rodin explained in paper 116, as 60. Then the last thing we're going to touch upon is make good use of our free will. What's really interesting, it's in the first part of the book in paper 16, they talk about free will. And I think they could have had the spiritual free will. In fact, Jesus talked about spiritual free will. And it say that it's active, the relative free will, which characterizes self-consciousness of human personality, is involved in one. You want to read it, Agnès, or you want me to go ahead?
Go ahead. I wanted to share something else, but I'll share it after.
I'll go ahead before I read it, no problem.
Well, I wanted to say that ever since I every day make the decision to do God's will, turning to Him every day, every morning, where do you want to go? Where shall I bring you? Where shall I drive you? Because He can't move without me. Every single day, that's what I'm asking Him. Well, I would say that all those, there are less and less choices, and I'm in less and less difficulties, because when I make the choice of God, when I take that decision, well, so many things are just fade away. They're unnecessary, because that is really heart-filling. To be there and saying, okay, you've got our agenda. What would you like us to do today? Where shall we go? And so, as it was so complicated for me before, am I making the good choice, etc., that when I read on I think it was the guardian angel, because I really had many difficulties doing that. When I read about, well, they're just waiting for us to make a choice. And whatever the choice is going to be, well, they are going to use that to make me grow. Wow, what a liberation for me it was. Because I was saying, oh, what must I choose a little bit? I don't remember. Sherry, I think she said, oh, and is God going to be happy with that choice? Like that little girl I was at home. Am I going to please Dad? Am I going to please Mum if I do this, if I choose that? And so I got free of that, because saying, okay, whatever, they need me to make a choice, because we're talking about free will there. So I have to move on. I have to do something. I have to choose something. And when I do that, there's a conspiration of so many different, how can I say, and spiritual energies there around me. And they are going to use whatever direction I have taken to make me grow. And that has been the best and the good liberation for me. So I was a little bit, how can I say, tiède, we say in French.
Lukewarm.
Lukewarm, making decisions because, ooh, what are going to be the consequences? Am I going to please God, etc.? And I said, no, that's a big liberation from that. So my decision, I decide to turn to God, and whatever His will is, I'm going to do my best every day to follow it. That's the only thing I want to do. So it makes it much more simple to me.
Amen.
Yes.
That was our last webinar. Simplicity brings us closer to God. Okay, we'll close with that. Make good use of our spiritual free will, and the relative free will is characterized by self-consciousness of the which characterize the self-consciousness of human personality is involved in moral decision, highest wisdom. If there's no moral man, there's no soul, because the soul is built on a moral self-consciousness. So what is the highest wisdom? Well, it's the wisdom of our thought adjuster. So our highest decision, our single purpose is to do our Father's will, to be transformed by Him. And then when we make that moral decision, we can make a spiritual choice. Truth discernment. How can we discern truth? We need to know the truth, and with the helper, the Spirit of truth, we have access to that amazing other gift from our spiritual benefactors, the Spirit of truth that is always showing us the way. The highest moral choice is the choice of the highest possible value, and always in any sphere, in all of them, this is to do the choice to do the will of God. If man does choose, he is great, though he might be the humblest citizen of Jerusalem or even the least of mortal on Urantia. Then we thought about what Jesus, even when he was a teenager, the three questions that he was asking. Do you remember these questions? Question were, does it bring people to God? Does it bring God to people? And does it feed their soul? So when I'm about to make a choice, I have choice to do many acts of service. Well, that's a good way to come to make a choice, a decisive choice. Does it bring people to God? Does it bring God to people by my way of doing? And am I able to feed their soul? So what's interesting, if you go back and you can do it by yourself, on paper 16 and section 8, then the next step where our free will, spiritual free will is involved is in unselfish service, when we are in brotherhood service. And the fourth one is when we're purposely cooperating with other, the group loyalty. So that's really interesting to see where these moral decisions, when we seek highest wisdom, when we make spiritual choice, seeking, discerning the truth with a capital T, using Jesus' question, and then always leading us to brotherhood service, where we can manifest unselfish love. And the power of the group, Jesus talked about that in his discourse of science, that the group working in harmony is much greater than any individual that can do. So we can be very talented and do great things by ourselves, but the minute two people work in harmony, they're doing so much more than I can do alone. And that's good. Every opportunity we have to work in team, we should take it. Well, there's any comments on that?
David.
Okay.
Yeah, so Jesus said when he was giving his ordination sermon, be ye perfect, even as your heavenly Father is perfect. And I there's one quote that I want to share with everybody. I've shared it before, but I just want to reaffirm it, that being a son of God in the kingdom of heaven, there is no material tests for you to do in the world to solve that spiritual problem. And I personally want to affirm that the seeking first the kingdom, there is no obstruction whatsoever for us to claim our sonship, except one thing, and that is your ability to forgive your brothers and sisters for everything and love them all as yourself. So there's a oneness in that. So there is no material test anyone needs to do to succeed, to become a son of God in the kingdom of heaven. It is a now experience. There is no material test to get that. It's yours. Be you perfect. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much, everyone. It's good to see your faces, and I love you all. And I hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
David.
Thank you, David.
Yes.
Well,
Sherry wants to share something. Guy.
oh, Sherry, share. Go, please.
Sherry, share.
It's in your DNA.
No, I really don't. I was just waving my hands.
Okay. I thought you wanted to.
But
I was very, very touched by what David said. It was a good reminder. It was wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, sister. Appreciate it.
In conclusion, you know, we have the Urantia book, and then we want to change the world by giving a lot of books. I think everybody has experienced that, and it's not working. The importance of smaller step. Look at that. Big project, and the other one just do little step, and he's at the top of the stair, of the ladder, and look, the other one is still at the bottom. So here's a little exercise. We took the 7 condition of effective praying. So first, effective prayer. We receive the information. Say, if you would engage, you must do this, you must possess cosmic dominance, you must have honesty, you must surrender, you must obliterate. Well, this is information you receive. It's not personal. I'll put it bigger. Then it's the appropriation. You make a moral decision and spiritual choice. You move from you must or I should to I must. If I want to be able to pray effectively, I must have in mind, I must qualify as an effective. I must have been industrious. I must make a wholehearted choice. I must, but even that, as someone said earlier, it's not enough. We need to bring it into action. We're moving into spiritual action, in decision action. So who wants to read the next 7 sentences?
I'll read.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Sherry.
Number 1, is that what I'm reading?
Yeah, start with I pray.
I pray effectively because I have present in my mind the laws of the following requests. 1, I qualify as an effective prayer because I sincerely and courageously confront the problems of universal reality. I have cosmic stamina. 2, I honestly exhaust all my human possibilities of adjustment. I am industrious. 3, I surrender all the wishes of my mind and all the desires of my soul to the transforming grip of spiritual growth. I experience an enhancement of meaning and an elevation of value. 4, I wholeheartedly choose the divine will. I obliterate the dead center of indecision. 5, not only do I recognize the Father's will and choose to do it, but I am unreservedly consecrated, dynamically dedicated, and wholeheartedly committed to the execution of my Father's will every day. 6, my prayer seeks exclusively to obtain the divine wisdom that enables me to solve each day my specific human problems encountered in the course of my ascent to paradise, the culmination of divine perfection. And 7, I have faith, a living faith.
Thank you, Sherry. Well, that's quite a step to go from Alfonso, go ahead. You want to say goodbye or you?
No, I just want to add something that I know I didn't hear, but the joy and the feeling of satisfaction when you do good, when your decisions, are good, and I that's what I do it because I feel I feel good about it. I enjoy doing it, and every day there is always an occasion that I will do something, that will bring joy to those around me and to me, to myself, and it's just something that comes to me naturally. Anywhere I go, I try to either bring a laugh or a smile to people or to do something for them. But it's just the joy of doing it. It's so nice. It's so beautiful, and it just give you that satisfaction. And that's what I just wanted to add. That it's a joy. It's a very satisfying thing to do, and you'll do it naturally as you practice it more and more and more.
Very
Thank you. It
true.
was a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Alfonso. God needs to become natural to us and unselfish service too. And then there's great moral satisfaction and spiritual joy. Thank you, Alfonso. Okay, it's right. We're
That was
right on the
awesome.
hour. Any closing comment? And maybe if someone wants to volunteer to do a closing prayer, and we'll say goodbye. Hi, Nathan.
I want to say I love you all very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, David. Okay,
Some
any
love
other?
for you too.
Okay. Who would volunteer to do a prayer, even in Spanish if you want? It's beautiful.
What about that lady who did it last time? She's fantastic
Yeah,
prayer.
Jetta, are you in a
Come on,
position
girl.
to...
Get in there.
Hello, guys. I'm so sorry, Guy. I know I promised the next one I would not be working, but when I got the email, I was already on the schedule, so I feel so bad about today, but I didn't want to miss it, so I was popping in and out when I wasn't on a call. So,
Okay.
but I did kind of get the gist of everything about just having the capacity to want to do better. I know we are to be perfect as the Father, He Himself, or the Spirit of God is perfect, and that's what we are striving for. And it's a journey. I see myself sometimes growing from where I was last year and the year before. So, and I think the best thing is not to be hard on yourself. We instinctively, intuitively, spiritually, in our hearts, we know what's right and wrong. You kind of know it, so you just have to work towards it, day by day. It's an ongoing journey. It doesn't stop. You can't just say, oh, today I got it right. There's tomorrow, you still have to strive for it. So I think what everyone said was beautiful, the parts that I could catch. But I know you guys are ready to leave. I'm sorry, I'm just getting on here. So you want me to pray us out, guys?
Yeah, if you want to do a closing
Yeah.
prayer, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, our dear Universal Father, thank you for bringing all of us together, giving us the tools and the leadership and just the inspiration and spiritual guidance that we have to be on this call today, each and every one of us. I pray that all of our families are healthy and doing well and just aspiring to know more of you, to learn more about you, to want to be in your presence, Father God. I am just grateful that I got a minute or two today to just commune with my sisters and brothers in this Zoom meeting. And I thank you for Guy and Agnes, who are selflessly helping us all and giving us the opportunity to come together. Take nothing for granted, not 1 minute, not one precious thing. We are so grateful, each and every one of us, I am sure in our hearts, even when the days are not so good. We're just grateful that you give us another opportunity to become more like you. And I just want to, if I miss anything, guys, I just want to say I love you all. And I thank God for each and every one of you. And I pray for safety, guidance, blessings, spiritual growth. Just, you know, our journeys are just precious. And my heart is full. And I just want to say thank you to God. Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah. Amen.
And
Thank
thank you, Guy and Agnes, but
Amen.
thank you
Yeah, thank
Jeannie
you,
for bringing
Agnes
us
and
together.
Guy.